Alright guys, welcome back, and in today's video we're going to continue the discussion of Sufism and Sufis, and really three things I want to discuss that the Sufis really did to enhance and get to that place of self-realization. And what they did, the three main techniques they did, or the three main tools, is eat little, sleep little, talk little. It could be summed up in that one sentence, in those three descriptions. They would fast, they would deprive themselves of sleep, and they would talk a little, they would isolate themselves. And so these three practices are some of the most powerful techniques to self-realization. You can see every day in society that food is pushed enormously. All this sweet, fatty, salty food is just pushed over and over. Everywhere you drive, there's a restaurant that has ice cream or cookies or pizza or French fries. You're probably getting hungry with me just saying that, but the point is that we overindulge in society, and we should take a step back, at least periodically, and do a fast, intermittent fast. Anything is really helpful, especially biologically or physiologically, to our well-being, our longevity, our health, and all that. It's always good to not go with the flow of society, like the Oscar Wilde quote, "Everything popular is wrong." So let's go dive deep into this a little bit and see what we get. Okay, so Sufism, as we talked about, is mystical Islam. So the point being is, it seems like every major religion, every major society or ancient culture, they've had branches of religious or mystical practices is the correct term for it. Whether it be from the ancient Indian Advaita Vedantas or the Egyptian and Greek mystery schools, or Gnosticism, to Sufism, to Catholicism. Is it Catharism? Or we'll just call them Cathars, which is a branch of Gnosticism. But every major branch of religious peoples, they've had this sect, this group, these outcasts, these people that actually went to the truth and realized the self, and knew in their own, sometimes in their own language, it differed a little bit, but the entire foundational concept of self-realization and the self is the same all across all of these traditions. It's so surprising. The foundational study, the foundational writings or teachings, this is a better word for it, is most likely it stems from the Upanishads, from ancient Vedic teachings and ancient Vedic knowledge. And so yeah, that's what I found, that's what I expressed in the book, and that's what I'm going with for now, with the Indus Valley civilization dating maybe close to 8,000 BC, close to 10,000 years ago. And it seems like a lot of knowledge in ancient Vedic knowledge stemmed from that area at that time. Okay, and so we're going to go talk about Sufism, talk about those three components, tie that into brainwaves, which is quite interesting as well, and to, I guess we would call it the physiological component, or the scientific component. That is scientific component. But here we go. Okay, so self-realization is not about building a stronger personality. It's about seeing through the illusion of a separate self, so that one awakens to the deeper reality, which the Sufis call al-hajj. The maxim, what I talked about, it's not for asceticism, the sleep little, talk little, eat little. It's used by the Sufis to awaken and thin the ego, so that true awareness can emerge, the true self. And so let's go over these. Self-realization in Sufism, knowing the self, is to know God, and to know God is to know the self. The famous Sufi saying is often attributed to the Prophet Muhammad. Though it's debated in hadith scholarship, it still captures the heart of the path. which is based all around the heart. So beautiful. It's so beautiful. Rumi exemplified this in his poems and writings, as we talked about in the last video. Whoever knows himself knows his Lord. In Sufi understanding, the self, the nafs, has layers. So there's all these layers. There's the commanding self, the self that reproaches itself, the tranquil self. And so self-realization is a journey from identification with the lower nafs to awareness rooted in the divine presence. It's not annihilation of the body or personality, but disidentification from compulsive desire, distraction, and self-centered narration. And annihilation, also called fauna. And then when they eat little, sleep little, talk little, it directly addresses the three main ways that the nafs maintain its illusion of control. So when we talk about eating little or fasting, in Sufism, hunger is not starvation, but intentional lightness. Excess food, when we eat too much food, everyone eats too much. Man, you see these plates today, especially in the United States, that are huge, enough for 2 people or more. Excess food thickens the body, dulls perception. Desire for food strengthens habitual craving. Satiety reinforces the forgetfulness. Sufis observe that when the stomach is full, the heart sleeps. And so that's very important. When the stomach is full, the heart sleeps. We want to awaken the heart. We want to realize the heart is us. Realize the self. Open the heart. Dissolve the knots of the heart. Now, eating little softens the ego's insistence on comfort. It makes the heart more sensitive to subtle states. Trains the self to obey conscious intention, not impulse. You could be at the dinner table, or you could be at home hungry, wanting to make something to eat. And just wait an hour. There's a good method of just letting a little bit of that hunger, just observe it, watch it, and eventually it goes away. It's actually profound. I'm a big fan of fasting, especially intermittent fasting, coupled with exercise and infrared saunas. Highly, highly effective. And one of the mechanisms is it gets the body into a state of ketosis and produces ketones, which has an influence on brain waves, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. So eating little is crucial for self-realization because the ego survives by automatic gratification. When gratification is delayed, the illusion of I must have weakens and awareness widens. And that's what we want. We want awareness. You want to be aware constantly, 24/7. That's what self-realization is. It's a 24/7 self-awareness. You're always aware. And sleep little is guarding the wakefulness beyond the body. Sleep in Sufi language has 2 meanings: physical sleep and spiritual unconsciousness. To sleep little does not mean chronic exhaustion. It means reducing excess escapist sleep, preserving night vigilance. And night wakefulness was treasured because the world's quiet social identity dissolves, the heart becomes intimate and exposed. Rumi writes, "Why are you asleep? The water of life is flowing around you." Self-realization requires continuity of awareness. Excess sleep fractures that continuity and strengthens identification with the body alone. And so, which is really interesting, we're going to talk about a book called Mystical Dimensions of Islam by Anne-Marie Schimmel. Really good book on Sufism if you ever want to read. And so what she talks about in her book, and she has a lot of great stuff. So she talked about a man named, I believe it's a man, Shah Kermani, did not sleep for 40 years, but eventually he was overwhelmed by sleep, and he saw God. So I mean, these guys, they do sleep deprivation to the max. And what they describe is they have the vision of a sun that is neither from the east nor from the west, but rises at midnight, and thus to enjoy spiritual enlightenment not comparable to any worldly light. So it's a light within, and when you're completely still, when you're almost asleep. I saw this too when I was meditating for like 3 hours one night years ago, and it feels like infinite bliss, infinite love, but the brightest light beyond all comprehension. Which is fascinating because when they talk about the soul trapped there's also a light, but I think it's a different light. They're talking about something else. If the theory or hypothesis, however you want to say it, of the moon being where you go for reincarnation, that being the soul trap, and then the portal gate out is the sun, then theoretically the moon could have a less bright light because the moon's still kind of lit. it still has a dimmer light than the sun. The sun is just increasingly, or not infinitely more bright than the moon. Okay, and then she also states in her book, hunger. They quote from the Sufis: "Hunger is God's food, by which He quickens the bodies of the upright." So that's fascinating too. And so Rumi, who also argues that just as a host brings better food when the guest eats little, God brings better spiritual food to those who fast. But hunger is the food of the ascetics, recollection that of the Gnostics. So the accounts of the extended periods of fasting of Muslim mystics are astounding. We have little reason to doubt their authenticity. This goes extreme. The wish to die in the state of fasting may induce some Sufis to even throw a wet piece of cloth they would put in their mouth to relieve them of the agony from fasting. They would take it to the extreme, such extreme that they would die, and this is not recommended. You don't need to go to that extreme. She also says it would be worth investigating to what extent this restriction to extremely small quantities of food contributed to their longevity of the Sufis, and that's quite accurate. These Sufis lived exceptionally long times, which is quite fascinating because of sleep deprivation. And we know sleep deprivation, supposedly when you have less sleep, that decreases your lifespan, while fasting increases your lifespan. So maybe the fasting was offset, maybe the meditative, the chanting, maybe all that offset their need for sleep. Maybe their bodies just got used to it. Maybe our perception, or maybe what we're told how much we need to sleep, is not entirely accurate. They say to be empty of worldly food is the precondition for enlightenment or self-realization. Like the early Christian monks who lived exclusively on the host, the Muslim saints considered hunger the best way to reach spirituality. Could the reed-flute sing if its stomach were filled? Rumi asked repeatedly. Man can receive the divine breath of inspiration only when he keeps himself hungry and empty. And there's Ruzbahan Bagli tells about a saint who totally fasted for 70 days, during which he remained in the contemplation of eternity. Samadhiyat. Sounds like samadhi. In that state, food comes to him from the word, I stay with my Lord who feeds me and gives me to drink. There's no longer the station of struggle, but that of contemplation. In cases of this kind, hunger is no longer a means for subduing the nafs, but a divine grace. Adoration is the food for the spiritual man, and the Sufis is nourished by the divine light. Some mystics like Ibn Kafif have confessed that their goal in permanent fasting and diminishing their food was to be like the angels, who also live on perpetual adoration. And she also goes in to talk about Gabriel's food was not from the kitchen, it was from the vision of the creator of existence. Likewise, this food of the men of God is from God, not from dish and food. And so the Sufis also say, why care for the body, which is a morsel for the tomb, and therefore be bony and lean? In addition to that, this is very interesting too, gut health is important, as they took a purgative on every third day to keep that digestive system flushed out and clean. This is very important too. The longer food sits in the stomach, the more agitation it causes. Could be a possible buildup of toxins and stuff in the stomach from that. So to keep yourself flushed out is actually pretty important. Just make sure you go in the bathroom regularly, if not, to check out your dietary habits, and check with your doctor. Always don't listen to me for any medical or health advice or any other person on the internet. Always consult your physician or healthcare provider. And so the great masters always acknowledge that hunger is only a means to spiritual progress, not a goal in itself. And that's basically that. That's it from her book that I'll go through. I did not talk about the talking little aspect, so let's talk about that briefly, and then we'll talk about the brainwaves of those three actually. No, we'll talk about the brainwave states of fasting, sleep deprivation, and actually mantra chanting, because the Sufis chanted a lot. They chanted the 99 names of God. They chanted different verses from the Quran. They chanted a lot. So this last part on here is talking little silences the ego's story. This is very important too. People talk too much. They just talk too much, and it is a form of escapism, bypassing emotions they don't want to face. And so everywhere you just hear noise, like people talking and talking. So what that means is take a step back and go into silence as much as you can and see if you could hear or experience or sense or witness or observe the self within. Of the three, talking may be the most subtle and difficult, especially for most people, because the ego lives in narration. Talking reinforces the sense of me and my opinions, solidifies identity through reaction and defense, externalizes attention instead of deepening presence. Sufis are not antisocial, they were just compulsive speech. To talk little means speaking only when speech carries truth, necessity, or remembrance. Letting silence digest experience internally. Remember, silence is the language of the self. Silence. Weakening, to talk little also weakens the ego's need to assert itself. Al-Junaid said, "The water of wisdom flows in silence. In silence, the false self loses oxygen. In that loss, real presence appears." And so, yeah, with all these together, I mean, if you did anything, plus if you knew the knowledge of the self, like I'm going over here and in the book I wrote, you're on a sure path. But part of it is going to be discipline, that brahmacharya, the self-discipline, self-control, self-restraint, is building that too, that fundamental skill is super important. You could do that by building it towards anything. So if you get up at a certain time, get up a little earlier, do something different, go get out of your comfort zone. This will help build those qualities for self-discipline. And you do it every day, make it as a skill. I like to go jog just about every morning, and sometimes do a bike in the evenings, and do something to get out of your comfort zone, make it a habit. And this will actually help build some of the skills for self-realization. You could attribute that, how you do anything is how you do everything. So you could take that and you could take that skill and put it towards self-realization. That's one of the things I actually talk about in the book too, is you have all these self-help gurus, and what are they doing? You're just going from a negative mindset to a positive mindset. You're still trapped in the slave of the ego or the mind into avidya. But what you can do is take those skills and take it from a positive mind to basically no mind to self-realization. You could use those for self-realization, and that is super powerful. And so all these together, the sleep little, eat little, talk little, reduces the noise, the physical, the mental, and the social, increases clarity, perception, intention, sincerity, creates the conditions for fana, or annihilation, or self-realization, ego dissolution, and bhaga, abiding in God. Self-realization is not achieved, it is revealed when obstructions are removed. That is to realize who you are underneath the mental chatter in the silence of the self. That is you. That is the true self. And then Sufis warn, this is super important. I cannot emphasize enough this component. I've seen people who think they're self-realized and they have very little love, very little compassion. And so this is absolutely fundamental. If these practices, according to the Sufis, they warn, if these practices are done without love, they become dry asceticism. So the heart must be developed through compassion, loving kindness, empathetic joy, the Brahma Viharas that we always consistently talk about. If you want if you want to help cultivate that, there's a 5 to 10 minute meditation you could do on developing the heart-brain coherence, and we go over that. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. Make sure you do that every day if you're interested in it. And then they also say true self-realization happens when eating little becomes gratitude, sleeping little becomes intimacy, talking little becomes listening to God, to the heart, to reality itself. As Rabbi al-Adawiyah taught, I do not worship you from the fear of hell or hope of paradise, but because you are worthy of being loved. that's really it for that. What remains is awareness without ownership. Life continues, but without the burden of the ego. Oh, real quick, go over the brainwaves effects. So the brainwave effects is a scientific explanation for all the stuff that they do. It's absolutely fascinating, and this is actually what got me super interested in all this stuff. I was like trying to figure out what was happening to me. What was these feelings? What were these not feelings? Yeah, I guess you could call it a feeling. But what was I observing? Who am I? What was this light? What is this love? What is this bliss I'm feeling? So when you fast, the effects on brainwaves are it increases alpha brainwaves, making you more calmer, more relaxed and focused, increases theta waves, deeper introspection, creativity, meditation-like states. It may reduce excessive beta activity, less mental noise, anxiety. Longer fasting can enhance gamma coherence, clear thinking in some people. And gamma is specifically related to compassion, compassion, compassion. Fasting shifts the brain towards calm focus and introspective states. It naturally causes one to become in a slower, relaxed state, conducive for self-realization, conducive to hear the sound of the soul, the sound of the self, the sound of your divine spark. And then this is all scientific stuff. You can find studies on this online. I talk about this in the book. There's all these, I think I have over 30 ways that complement the four main techniques I talk about, or the four main practices. Three main practices plus one preparatory of cultivating love. Basically, so sleep deprivation and brain waves, here's real quick. It increases theta and delta waves while awake. Fascinating. Disrupts alpha waves, reduces beta and gamma activity. The brain shows sleep-like activity during wakefulness, leading to, they say, reduced cognitive performance, but increased ability to realize the self when you're in that slower state. It's amazing when the body or the brain doesn't get enough sleep, it tries to get it in the waking day. It's actually quite interesting that some of these Sufis stayed awake for up to 40 years at a time, just wide awake. You know what it is? I think they're just conscious during 24/7 is what it is. Then that's like a very deep state of self-realization. That's very advanced, is to be aware in sleeping, waking, and sleeping and waking, and dreamless sleep. I guess those are the three qualities. But usually Turiya is the fourth state, which is being aware and awake in the waking state without the mind chatter. And similar to the third state, which is the dreamless sleep, but it's more when you're awake. It is when you're awake. Okay, so mantra chanting. This is interesting too. So I started learning about this a few years back. I noticed in India they chant a lot of mantras. It's tons. I remember all this, and so what it does, increases alpha waves, increases theta waves, and can enhance gamma synchronization. Fascinating stuff. Mantra chanting shifts the brain toward calm, focused, meditative states. And so, like I said, the Sufis they chant mantras, usually the 99 names of God, different quotes from the Quran. And in Hinduism, they're chanting different gods, all this stuff. And it's repetitive. It gets you in a hypnotic state. And even transcendental meditation, their main practice is chanting a mantra. You get a personal mantra, you chant that. I don't know if it's an hour or two, but anyways, that causes this stillness, this self-realization type of state. The mantra eventually dissolves, but it basically focuses your mind on a mantra, and then you dissolve it. Because usually our mind is just like talking this. Your mind's like that. But if you focus it on one thing like that, then eventually you could take that one thing and dissolve it. So you could make anything a mantra. As I said before, I'm not into chanting names of God, different gods. You know, they have all these different gods in Hinduism. Even though ultimately everything is from the self, it's from Brahman, but I'm not a I'm not huge on chanting different gods, but Om is a very good one to chant. Om, Om, Om. And that's the sound of the self. Especially when you pause, that's the emptiness, that's the stillness. Right there. See that pause? That's you. That's the self. All right, and that's it. I covered a lot today, a longer video than normal. It took me a while to get warmed up and ready to go. Not used to talking so much, used to just being. But thanks for being here, and I hope you appreciate these videos. Like and subscribe if you can. If not, it's all good. I still love you. You're awesome. Thank you for being here, and wish you all the very best.